Yo, 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 welcome to another edition of Geeky Bros Podcast. I am just Darcy, and
This is Big Geek Umar, all the way from Colombia. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the end of a long week and maybe a long weekend. I don't know. We'll see. Life is crazy. How are yourself?
I'm doing well myself. Yo.
Wow, just made it, yo.
Yo, it hasn't.
Yo,
It's
yo,
not even.
yo, welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros Podcast. Did y'all do that yet? Did y'all do it?
Yeah. It's not 6:01, but you still late.
Good to have you
Uh,
too, bro. How you doing, T?
I'm tired, man, but I'm good.
Yes, it's been a week for all three of us, it seems, and
yeah.
also maybe all the rest of you as well. But the Geek Bros are back together, and it's good to be back. And we have a lot to talk about. I mean, making this agenda, I had to like. It was difficult to find things to take out of the agenda because there's just there are a lot of upfronts happening, and also a lot of decisions for future budgets that are going through all right now. So we are
Mm.
getting tons of news. We're getting tons of like they were dropping trailers like crazy the last week and a half, and also a whole bunch of season finales and cancellations and renewals were taking place. So like we're picking and choosing today, which is weird because a couple of weeks, I think it was like a couple months ago, Tactix was saying we were scraping the bottom of the barrel of things to talk about, and now we're like, we not only fed, we have to send things back.
Send it back. Send it back.
Yes. So the first thing, unless you guys have any objections, I'm going to just jump right into the agenda. All right. So the first thing is we kind of heard this a while back, but it has now been officially confirmed. Nicolas Cage is going to be doing a Spider-Man Noir on Amazon. We don't know a lot of details as of yet, aside from the fact that, of course, he's going to be playing a Noir Black from like of his character from Into the Spider-Verse, and also briefly from Across the Spider-Verse. He will be an aging and down on his luck private investigator in the
Perfect.
30s of New York, who is going to be also has spider powers
Perfect.
and is going to be released on Amazon at uh, some point in the near future. Now, when I first heard this, I was kind of like, okay, but then I heard more. So apparently, the co-showrunner is one of the guys who did Mortal Kombat,
Oh.
and the other one is the guy who did Marvel's The Punisher.
Ooh.
So I was like, I actually exactly what you said, Darcy. Oh, I was like, let's see where this goes. Now we're also getting some veteran Amazon directors. The one who did Killing Eve and Fleabag, who's going to be directing a couple of the first two episodes, and of course it's going to be Nicolas Cage, being Nicolas Cage in the Spider-Man voice. So I will see how this turns out, but I'm kind of interested in what my bros think. So, Darcy, let's start with you, man. Like, what do you think of this officially announced news as opposed to murmurs before?
Well, first off, I was disappointed when you said it's on Amazon, but Seth Rogen ain't a part of this because he on like all the good stuff when it comes to Amazon. So I was hoping you go see Seth Rogen's
Oh,
involved.
I forgot one thing. He's actually this is a live action series.
Uh,
Wait,
Oh man, the both of you. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a live action series. I forgot to mention that.
that is a very important detail.
Yes, it was. It was. I forgot that wasn't like imply. Yo, T, your face right now is
what?
killing me.
Sorry.
Yeah. So that you know let me give you an example of like what that late information was like. Imagine you bringing us up to dinner and you describing a meal, okay, and you forget to mention that the animal gonna come out live. we like, we just be like, wait, what? What am I expected to do? That was my experience. Well, see, part of me it's like if this was animated, I'm all in. This is dope. But I'm definitely now in the camp of let's wait for a trailer. Now, here's the thing. I 100% believe that, Nicolas Cage can pull off the tone of the character because he already did it. But there's a big difference between a cartoon version of him rolling around and me imagining the younger version of Nicolas Cage the entire time than watching an older Nicolas Cage moving a lot slower than the animated character. I mean, unless they have stunt doubles every time he puts a mask on and he's just a voice. Actually, now that I say that out loud, if they do this kind of like The Mandalorian, then it could be kind of decent.
I was
scraping at the door.
and then you have the Punisher. Now I don't get like where the Mortal Kombat part guy's skill plays in, other than maybe like because if you're hiring for skill, I mean if it was the guy who did the first and the last fight in Mortal Kombat, if that's what's his responsibility, then I have a lot of faith in him, but not for the rest of it. But Punisher has been straight solid. So
Yeah.
Is this gonna mean that it's gonna be like not just noir, but like a little bit like hardcore too?
Well, he did have a gun, if I recall correctly, in the animated series. Like they did talk about, like he used guns before. So like, and also he was fighting Nazis. So like, again, this is in the '60s, so they should have been done with the Nazis, wouldn't they? No, sorry, this is in the '30s.
The not so much gun part. I just meant like, is it gonna be like gritty? You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be like dope violence or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, now the one thing of all of this that gives me the most faith, but I'm gonna retract my statement as I say it, is that it's on Amazon. Amazon's got a pretty good track record. However, it would be dumb for Amazon not to try to get any property from Marvel, period. So that doesn't really mean anything. It could be complete trash, but they're like, it's Marvel. It's going to bring attention to us, right? They're going to have to come here to watch it. I don't know. You see, it's like, if you look at the showrunner, okay, that gives me a little bit of faith. If you look at the voice acting, that gives me some faith. But if I got to see slow ass movement when I already have a basis of expectation, that ain't gonna sell it for me. So I'm gonna need this to go down Mandalorian style, and we have stunt people who do everything once the mask goes on, and the mask just comes off so we can see his face, and we just go right back to it. That's how I need it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit with you on this one, Darts. Hello to Nagar and Maybot for joining us today. Maybot is saying, I don't know.
Can I respond to that one? Can I respond to that one? So she's saying Keanu Reeves is 59 and Cage is 60, and John Wick what wasn't that bad? The slow man. Yeah, I don't believe that our dude over here, Cage, is gonna put down what Keanu Reeves does. Okay, I don't have that level of faith. Maybe you do, but I do not have that level of faith. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
I mean, he read in National Treasure.
That movie was like 10 years ago, bro.
He ran 10 years ago. That's a repertoire for physique. That's like when the guy shows up, he's like, I used to be a power lifter in my 20s. It's like, man, you pushing 75. You need to relax.
All right. T, what are your thoughts?
I don't want this, man. You dropped a hard bomb on us with that live action bullshit, bro. Because when you put it in the chat in the WhatsApp group, I was like, okay, he's already done. Like, we've already seen him in the animated, like with the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse. So I'm like, okay, he could pull this off. Do I want to see a standalone, animated version of that? Sure, he was entertaining enough to hold my interest. And then you said live action. And I was like, nah, this is a hard pass for me. This is a hard pass. I'm with Darcy. I don't buy into it that he could. he could carry this film, or carry himself for that matter at his age. And to Mayblad's point, like Keanu Reeves has been doing martial arts since he filmed The Matrix, and he's been consistent with his practice. I don't know if Nicolas Cage has those kind of credentials under his belt. If he does, he hasn't been showing it in any of his latest work. So I'm not 100% confident that he can pull off a movie like this. If they do it like The Mandalorian, then and he's just the voice and nothing else, then okay, maybe. Then we're kind of getting the same kind of similar idea as like an animated show. So then if that's the case, I would be on board. But otherwise, yeah, this is a hard pass for me. I don't want this.
By the way,
I don't want this.
On the side right now, I'm going to pull up a random fight scene from him in a movie called, or show, or something, Jiu-Jitsu. Seems like a fairly recent clip. So I'm going to watch this. And before we're done this section, Umar, you give your thoughts. I'm going to tell you what I think of his fight scene in this, and I'll give you my expectations. Okay. But you can go next.
All right, so like my first thing is just let's say that Maybot is saying I don't want Nicolas Cage to be clear. So like
I feel like she's lying though.
I feel she was just
campaigning pretty hard.
she was just making a statement like Keanu Reeves and Nicolas Cage, they close in age. So like in terms of like, I guess preventing us from being ageist, she just wanted.
But that's a reach though. Keanu Reeves, Nicolas Cage, that is a reach.
Yes, I will say that all of us are unanimous in that like the live action thing kind of caught me off guard. I will say that when I first my first thought was like, oh God, really? He's now doing this. And then I saw the live action, I'm like, oh my God, is he actually going to do this? And so a part of me wants to try out the first episode just to see how bad this is, or if it will surprise the hell out of me, and I'll be like, I can't believe, but I'm kind of digging it. So I want to know, because it's Amazon, and like Darcy says, they surprise you.
I just don't know if I've liked anything Nicolas Cage has done since Face Off.
Facts.
Like I really want to like this guy. I mean, not him personally. Like okay, Con Air was dope, but I think I think Con Air came before Face Off. So
fair.
Yeah, actually, I think I like the first National Treasure.
I haven't seen on any of them. They're not my national treasures.
I want to like his work. It's just everything he puts out is just not good.
So I just watched this clip of him in jiu-jitsu. This man's gonna be using a lot of guns. Let me put it that way, okay? Stunt doubles and guns. That's how this is gonna go down.
Stunt doubles and guns.
All right.
It was what was the most recent Matrix Reloaded or whatever? No,
Matrix Resurrection.
Resurrection.
All of us.
Yeah, that level.
Yeah. At least Maybot's on my side with National Treasure and Face Off. Okay, so suffice it to say, I will be telling you guys how this show goes when it gets released. But hopefully,
you'll be doing the 3-episode review and letting us know before we jump in.
All right, so moving on to our next topic. Another piece of news came out for a beloved series for my bros. I'm only halfway through Mr. and Mrs. Smith currently. My partner and I are getting through it slowly but surely. We are enjoying it. And we have been discussing that basically she and I know that you guys love it so much, and that's literally the only reason we keep pushing through. We are starting to like it more and more each episode. We're having a little bit of trouble connecting with this series, but as Tactix told me, each episode we're getting more and more into it, and now it's like, okay, well, we want to know what happens next. We want to know what happened next. Just to let you guys know, the last episode we saw was the double date with the couples thing.
Did you finish it?
Yeah, we finished it. So that had us like especially Don Glover going like, that was horrible. But anyway, the reason I bring this up is to preface.
Oh yeah, when they go to like the other country.
Yeah.
I love the phone call. He just out here is like, Like they're just like he's like talking with a different voice than his face. That was so good.
He's like, yeah, it was pretty bad.
I loved it. It was pretty bad.
This is so good.
So the only reason I'm bringing this up is to preface the fact that I haven't finished the season yet, but I plan to, and we're going to. However, news of season 2 for Mr. and Mrs. Smith has come out, and while it has been renewed for a second season, sources are saying that Donald Glover and Maya Erskine are not expected to return for season 2. But Glover is still credited as a co-creator and executive producer. So this had me go, huh? Because if I recall our conversation about the season before, Tactix was saying if they end the season like this, I can live with that, even though you want a season 2, because apparently something, and I don't know what it is, happens at the end of season 2. And Darcy was like, you can't leave a brother like that. Give me season 2. So now I want to know, with this information, how my bros doing? So T, I'm going to go to you first.
I don't know what I can. I don't.
Yeah.
If I say something, I might spoil
No.
it. It's gonna be a huge.
No. We can't be out here spoiling. We gotta give him a chance, you know.
Yeah. Because it's a big. So what you just said is huge, but I don't know if it's because this is just kind of like tongue in cheek. They're trying to deflect or kind of lead us astray in a way.
Mm-mm.
Or it's actual facts. And
well, without speaking in spoilery territory, the one thing about this show is we see at the very beginning that Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and by the time you get to like the episode you're on, you 100% know that Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a title, right? It's James Bond and like Jane Bond, basically, right? And so, you know, there's a lot of interesting things that could happen in a second season. Like it could be just a completely different couple, right? Watch it's like the backstory to the couple they went on a date with. Like watching those two, and we're just like watching them leading up to meeting these two. But they could tell multiple different stories within the universe, and they could overlap them. So like they could tell a completely different story of a completely different couple, and then they could overlap them at some point in meeting this couple here at whatever point in timeline that makes sense. So like there could be a complete reason for that they're just like instead of doing a typical show and typical storyline, they're trying to break out the universe really quickly and just tell different stories, which could also be an interesting marketing perspective. As in like Umar's like, you know, I'm struggling here to connect with these characters, you know, I haven't watched enough of the black movies and higher learning, so I don't really know how to connect with Donald Glover. But then they come out and then it, you know, it's like Dave Patel, and then it's like, oh shit, no.
Yo, you guys aren't done. I finished last night.
It would literally go down like that.
Yeah.
You know what though? As I said that, he would be perfect in this show. He would be amazing in this show. Because I just finally got to see Monkey Man like last weekend, which I was dying to see, and seeing that and seeing him in this, he would be amazing.
I feel like he'd be too good though.
He
based on how they're setting this up, like, or how they've already set this up, I feel like he'd be way too good unless they like play down his skill set.
If they're doing different stories of different like people, they don't all have to follow the same mold, right? Like you could have two different couples where like they're both amazing experts at the very beginning. They were both like amazing physicality and whatever. And the problem they're facing is completely different, which makes the whole season very, very different in tone and interesting storyline.
Fair. But so for you, Darcy, because I know you finished it, what for you about this show was a huge selling point for you? Like, what was it that really drew you to finish the entire season?
Okay. Because I was like, when you said selling point, I was thinking like what attracted me to try it, and versus what got me to loving it once I started watching it. I'll answer both those. I think they're interesting. From the selling point of bringing me in, I mean, literally, this couple very much feels like my own relationship. Like I'm just a taller version and lighter skin version of Donald Glover, and my partner does not look that far off from the woman that he's dating. So like I was like, they were just 100% like, oh, I kind of want to check that out. But what got me through it was actually, it's actually the same thing, which is that the dynamics of their relationship as you started to see them as people interacting felt very similar to me in many ways. I'm not as yoga as Donald Glover's character is, but the roles between the relationship felt very similar, and it was very, I like the context, I like the world, as in like going like just the world building, but also the exploration. I like high how do I put this, beautiful homes and beautiful like landscapes and beautiful things for the perspective of them being beautiful, not for the perspective of like, oh, it's a big name. And so the way they showed the aesthetic, and I've always like high art from the perspective of like the pursuit of making something amazing. And so I saw the world that they're in and how they kind of portray it. It's like, it was just, that was also very intriguing. Plus there's cool action. Plus there's like funny comedy like layered in, but it was like dry humor that came in moments it shouldn't come in, kind of thing. And so, and I just thought the story just was intriguing because there was this level of like, we all know that these two people really screwed themselves over because they got in like, I'm gonna get in this and just get my money and get out. It's like, whatever made you think that that was gonna be allowed? Like, and so you're like, where is this going to go? And the question of where it's gonna go. But what really kept holding me was just the realness of their relationship, in that interactions that felt, yeah, I've been there, or I'm probably gonna go through that again, right? And so that felt very tangible and not Dawson's Creek, you know, like how people talk, and it's like, oh, this is how mature adults talk to each other, and it's like, no, that's not how people really talk. People have a lot harder time trying to articulate what they're feeling in the moment, and these people, I felt like, did that. So that was it for me. Yeah.
How about you, T?
Well, off the bat, I've been a Donald Glover fan ever since Derek Comedy days when he was on YouTube. So I will support anything that this man does. So yeah, that was kind of like my initial draw. And the first episode didn't really grip me right away, but because I am a fan of him, I decided to stick it through. And as the show progressed, kind of similar to where you're at right now, Umar, is like it kind of really grew on me. And like, as Najim is saying in the chat, like the dialogue in this is so relatable. It's like, and when I was kind of pitching it to you guys initially, I was saying how, like, you know, you at one point, because we're all in relationships now, like we have had similar conversations that are going on in this show, and it's just very interesting to see it from an outside perspective. And then you're just like, oh, that's what that feels like when you're like a spectator instead of like a contender in your relationship. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just very interesting and a very visceral experience to have witnessed that. And so that layered on top of the fact that it had a lot of really good humor, and Donald Glover's always been known for his like comedic chops. And then the action, I mean, the action wasn't spectacular, but again, like,
it's not the point.
Yeah, it's not the point of the show. And like once you understand that early on into the show, you like, anytime there is action, it's kind of like icing on the cake, but you don't really need the icing because the cake is just as good on its own. And so yeah, that I overall I just felt like the chemistry was really strong. The dialogue between the characters were great, and it's mostly just them two most of the time, right? And it's very dialogue driven, which is great because normally that could be very hit or miss, right? And so I really enjoyed it for that aspect. But the reason why I was asking that, sorry, Darcy, I know you gotta say something, but the reason why I was asking initially is that, like, because we had like 8 episodes and we've grown attached to these two characters, my issue, and it's not really a big issue because we sometimes see this in other shows like Doctor Who, for example, where like we get so fixated on like particular character that when they're no longer a part of the show and then they bring in a new character, it's like almost hard to like invest in these new characters. But then again, like as I say that, I'm like thinking back to like Gen V, where I felt that initially, where it was like, okay, I'm so drawn to the boys now. I like we're like 3 seasons in. I don't really want to see a derivative show in the same universe. And then I ended up actually really enjoying Gen V. So
Yeah.
with that being said, I mean, if they do introduce new characters, I just hope that like they're still able to capture the essence that initially drew, well, I can only speak for myself, but me to the show and kept me invested, and maybe add something a little bit different, but still keeping the main beats present throughout the show. But yeah,
because like people like what is like fans are theorizing right now that Mr. and Mrs. Smith might actually turn into one of kind of like Black Mirror. It's like an anthology sort of thing where each season is a different couple, and we don't know what sort of connection, if they're even going to have one. And another theory was brought out is that they're going to, because they've already kind of like tried to encapsulate, like you guys both said, elements of relationships that every couple can relate to. But they're also talking about if they're going to be doing different styles of couples and different styles of dynamics.
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. So again, like we will see what will happen. I won't lie. I have a certain idea. I have an idea. That's all. I haven't looked ahead. I haven't read ahead. I have an idea of how I think the season's going to end. And given how the two of you have very kindly and expertly avoided giving me any spoilers, it kind of almost leads me to deduce that I'm almost right in my deductions. But we'll leave it there. But I was a little.
I have one point before we move off of
Oh,
this.
please.
I just wanted to say something to properly describe for anyone who's not seen this, or even for people who have seen it, why this show is super relatable for couples. And so, when you look at relationships as a whole, right, over long periods of time, it is moments and experiences that create bonds that deepen the relationship. And so what happens in this show is that it's expedited because of the events that they go through. So the kinds of bonds that they would build normally over a longer period of time, conversations in a regular show would feel BS. But what they do is they use the events that they have to do as assassins to actually push certain parts. If I almost feel like they sat down and they mapped out, if we wanted a relationship to go from this point to this point with these two people that started in this perspective, what are the general major events that these types of couples would have to go through if we wanted them to be at this point in time. And so they say, okay, these are the kinds of like arguments or experiences and connections that they would have to make. And then they probably build the assassinations to force them to have that so that they could have dialogues at those points that would make sense. And if you didn't have those catalysts, it would feel like, how did we get here this fast? Like that was 4 years for me. How you here in like 7 weeks? It's like, well, if I just literally got dropped off a helicopter with my partner and had to annihilate an entire village of people to live, we would have a very different emotional connection at the end of that day. Like it's just how it's gonna be, and that's like taking years of trials and tribulations that couples go through, and then you get to that point where you have those kinds of conversations. So that's what I think is like so good about it, is that the dialogues actually are relatable because we believe that they would have them after those events, because they feel like bigger and faster versions of stuff that we've gone through emotionally, but not really, because we obviously aren't dragging people with a hood over their head out of a building to kill them. So
yeah, I would say that like for me, it's just like the one thing I think I've overcome it now, because I've kind of like settled into the procedure, the premise of the series. Because like for me, I feel anxiety over the two of them, not because of I'm worried about them getting into a fight, not because I'm worried about them like saying something that they don't mean. I'm anxious because they're not good at their jobs, and I'm constantly like afraid of what they're going to mess up, and I'm like, don't do that. But
Yep.
are they going to do that? Just don't do that. And like that's giving me anxiety. So like I'm not really looking forward to more anxiety, but like it's lessening with each episode because
They get better. They get better at that.
They get better, and also I get more used to their antics because I'm getting to know them more as a couple and more as a characters. So that I think is this hurdle that I'm just getting over, which was kind of like slowing me down in terms of like wanting to watch the next episode.
Yeah. No, they don't worry. They get better. I'm not saying it's like James Bond, but they get better.
All right. Moving on to our next topic. So we talked a while back about Jake Gyllenhaal's Roadhouse remake that came out on Amazon earlier this year. Now, there was a whole lot of controversy around that to begin with because apparently it wasn't going to be released in theaters like it was supposed to, and like the director like decided to boycott the premiere because he was like, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then we checked it out as the Geeky Bros, and let's just say that we collectively felt that it could have been better. So a little bit of surprising news on my part was that they've already greenlit a second movie, and Jake Gyllenhaal is set to return. And I was kind of like, wait, what? Literally was my response. And I kind of was like, well, I held for a second, and I was like, but why though? And then my immediate thought was maybe because of the money and viewers. But whatever. Like aside from that, I was not pleased with the action as I was wanting to when I watched the first one, and so I kind of want to know what my bros, if you guys have, I guess, a more hopeful view of the second movie than I do. So, Darcy, let's start with you, bro. Like, what are your thoughts on a second Roadhouse film?
Well, I wasn't displeased with the action, but I will say that it suffers from final fight syndrome for me. So in other words, like a lot of the bar brawl stuff, like I'm not saying it compares to the original, nor do I really remember the original, but I know that the original had better martial arts. It was much more closer to like Chinese martial arts of the time, because that was also super popular of the time, right? You had the Jean-Claude Van Damme's coming out and doing all kinds of stuff, and so like that was an era. And so, but I felt like when it was just like the fun bar brawly stuff, it was cool. When we got to the very big final fight, yeah, that definitely like suffered the most and became the least realistic, even though they were actually they were getting beat up. At least they didn't look like they were like throwing each other around like The Rock and Vin Diesel, and like coming out unscathed. Like unscathed, like we're gonna drop this whole floor on you, but hey, you know, like not even a pebble, you know, because I'm The Rock, you know, like so. But I don't know. I enjoyed this film, but I had never any major expectations. For me, this was a sit down and eat some popcorn and enjoy a very simple film. And would how to put this? Was it better because I watched it at home than if I watched it in the theater? I don't know, 50-50, right? Depends on the people I'm with and how long it took for them to give me the popcorn and my burger at the thing, and if they sent me in a bad mood or a good mood, you know. But I'm okay with there being a second film. I'm not saying the first film was amazing. I think the first film is a solid 6.5 to 7, right? But I enjoy it enough, and my thought is for the second film to be better, I would ask for two major things. One is that they get a better opposing villain from an acting perspective. I appreciated McGregor for what he was trying to do, but he definitely had a very specific stance and tone of voice that just never changed. and I felt like it was like 2 out of 5 doctors recommended kind of moment. Where it's like, where like some scenes, I probably just was accepting it at this point, and then something that I was like just absolutely like, bro, okay, you're really throwing this whole scene off for me. So one, I think a better somebody who can act and throw down. You know, and I'm absolutely game for this to be the same idea as, Creed and Rocky, where you get a real athlete to compete against an actor. I'm all for that. Just I'd rather like you get a unknown person who has a lot of acting chops than to get a well-known person and not have acting chops. That's the one thing for me. And then the second thing is, and I don't know, I'll probably never get this, but I want this third act, this final fight syndrome for me is just, it's like they always got to go bigger, and they always got to go like big stunts, and I'm like, well, why don't you just have it be more emotional? Why don't you have it being more figuring things out? Why don't you have it being more like an intelligent moment, right? Like instead of trying to always go bigger, because it's hard to go bigger. It's hard to like do a John Wick, for going up and down the staircase 7 times to then having a very cerebral final gunfight, right? It's very hard to elegantly do that. And so why don't we try to do something, a little bit different? And, you have all these big fights, and then you get the end and you have something that's like, I don't know, just unexpected, right? And you focus more on what it makes you feel than what it looks like. So I don't know. That's what I would want. But I'm fine with the second film. Just as long as there's popcorn or a snack, and whether I watch it at home or with people in the theater, it's cool either way.
T.
Yeah, I was fine with this movie. Did it meet the expectations that the trailer left? Absolutely not. I thought that, based on what we got in the trailer, I was super hyped for this movie. And when I watched it, I was like, I had a good time, but it definitely fell a little flat for me in a lot of areas, especially near the third act. So yeah, for me, not the greatest, but again, for a movie called Roadhouse that's based off of 80s film, like I wasn't really expecting much from this to begin with. So for what I got, I was completely okay with it. I'm with Darcy. Like, just even if it's mindless fun, like put it this way, I can't sit here and talk shit about this movie having invested in 10 Fast and the Furious movies willingly. Like so and we all know how those movies are. So
yeah.
We all know we're watching the next one. Like,
exactly. So
like we have to know, even though it's stupid and ridiculous, what happens at the bottom of that dam.
Yeah. I'm all in. At this point, I'm all in. But so yeah, I wasn't really expecting anything from this. Was I expecting a sequel? Not really, considering that the director of this film had nothing but like bad words to speak about Amazon, and apparently they did him dirty. And
do you know though, like, because this part wasn't publicized. He went to the premiere. Do you know that?
He did?
Yeah.
I thought he was going to boycott it.
So here's what happened. So Casey Neistat, who's like a famous YouTuber for those who are not familiar, he's the one who invented vlogging. But his stuff is way better than everybody else's. He's friends with the director. And so he went to interview him about, like, after the news came out, in between that point and the premiere, he went to interview him, and he did this thing like leading, like it was released after the premiere. And so he went to talk to him and see what was going on. And then the director is like, he didn't win. And so he's like, all right, I didn't win. All right, let's go to the premiere. And so they went to the premiere together, because he's like, you have to accept defeat. And he went to the premiere because he was doing it to try and sway things in the other direction. But since it wasn't going to change anything, he's just like, well, I might as well go to the premiere and watch the film. He didn't like he kind of just showed up in the audience
Mhm.
unexpectedly for people.
Interesting.
And so obviously some people felt some different ways about it or whatever. But
So
he ended up going. So just like, for context, because a lot of people didn't realize that.
Oh,
so
I
is
didn't.
there more of a likelihood of him being attached to the sequel, or has he written this movie off completely?
I have no idea. I mean, he still. I think by the end of it, he was still felt his way about Amazon. He
Mhm.
just he was like really trying to make a ploy for it and use his power. It didn't work. He didn't have enough power, so he went to like be with the cast and support everything and whatnot that he had worked on. Would he go for a second one? Obviously, if he were, he would be very much making sure that it would be going up to theaters as planned,
Mm.
and that would be like a requirement at the very beginning. Like obviously, he wouldn't sign on if he doesn't get what he wants the second time around. So
Now, does this have something to do with like, is this like a financial issue, or is it like he wanted it to be more widely seen?
I think both. I think
Because I
I think
mean,
he definitely
even
said he wanted it. It was a party movie meant to be seen in theaters. But obviously, there's a financial component of how people get compensated when it goes to theaters versus going to the movies. And I know that the whole strike was a big part of that. But I don't know if this movie's contracts are probably signed before the strike,
Mhm.
right? And so I don't know how much of it would apply to this, if it's retroactive back a certain period of time or
Yeah.
going forward.
Well, if the demand, I mean, clearly the demand is there, and it did well
Yeah.
enough to warrant a sequel. So now, if he is going to be attached to this, he could technically, in theory, negotiate a higher price tag, right?
One would
Yeah,
hope.
yeah. I mean, I have a feeling though Amazon would very much also open up to a different director, and how much of this is repeatable by another director, maybe a bit of an argument for that. But I mean, I feel like this does have enough tone that it might feel off with a different director. However, since we have issues with it, maybe a different director would improve on it because it's not quite Michael Bay in Bad Boys, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like when you remove the director, it's like you're removing a character,
Hmm.
and it's a fundamental character, like So
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Umar, what do you think?
Uh, yeah. Well, I think my stance was pretty clear. I just I want better fight sequences. I agree with what Darcy's saying. I don't need, and I think I've been more critical about this because Darcy and I we had like a segment about this about the third act problem in superhero films, and now I'm starting to actually notice it in like action films in general. I like, and maybe this is a personal choice. Maybe I'm being too critical as per usual, but like I like a more focused and, as Darcy said, a more like, emotional, more cerebral sort of fight sequence. Like with, like for example, in this scene with Conor McGregor and Jake Gyllenhaal, like, all the other aspects of it aside, I didn't like their actual last fight anyway because it was like all weird CGI
yeah,
cinematography movements that I was not a fan of.
yeah, need to be grounded.
If Yes, if they kept it like for example, the fight at the bar, like his first fight at the bar when he fights the bullies, like the people who are like trashing the place.
Mhm.
Do you guys got insurance? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Like I love that. If and also the way we saw Conor McGregor show up in the beginning, minus his massive amounts of nudity, like it showed that there was an element of like capability on both of them to actually have a really good, intricate hand-to-hand fight scene.
yeah,
Um, and I felt robbed of that, and I felt robbed of like a couple other fights in the movie as well. So for me, I don't want them to repeat those problems. I want them to kind of, and I don't need a big overarching conspiracy with like all these guys he has to fight his way through sort of thing. Like if it's as simple as just like two people who just want to have a face off just to know who's best. Like maybe I have too much anime in my background, but like I don't need the big stakes. And
yeah,
especially for an action film, like you can do like you're saying, a grounded story, and it's still going to be dope. Like
yeah,
everyone still says the John Wick the first movie was by far its best one, and in comparison to the rest of the films, it was also the most like grounded. He went after the people who went after his dog. Simple. killed his way through those people. He like they were teased of a much bigger world, but like it wasn't like he was facing all these different societies. Not that I'm saying I'm against all the updates for the John Wick stuff, but like it's still my favorite because it had the most grounded aspect. And I wouldn't mind if they actually just stick that for the second movie. For me, I would say that I was looking for an enjoyable popcorn film, and I ended up being disappointed because the action wasn't what I was looking for, or what I was like most anticipating based off the trailer that I saw. Because I thought a slap match with a bunch of bullies from Jake Gyllenhaal in the beginning of the film as part of a trailer, I was like, yo, if this is just like what they're showing us as a tease, can you imagine what the fight's going to be? And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. You know what's one of my favorite martial art films of all time, and I think is probably one of the best ones ever done, and it's why, like, when I say the third act problem, why you can go a completely different direction than you expect and it can be better. Have you guys seen Warrior with Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's on my list.
You haven't seen it?
You haven't seen it?
I really
Oh, it is the pinnacle. It is fundamental story for those who haven't seen it. It's two long lost brothers who end up entering the UFC at the same time and are fighting for the crown and end up having to fight each other in the very end. And that fight is amazing. And Tom Hardy, this was pre-Bane, and you saw Bane coming because he was training to be Bane. And he put it this way, like, Joel Edgerton is like a expert fighter of class and knows how to handle himself. And Tom Hardy was coming in like he was just ready to pop your head off. He didn't care. He just was coming in ready to pop people's heads off. His traps were insane in this film. His shoulders were insane. They were on fire all the time, big. And you just come in and be like, pop, you're dead. Pop, you're dead. Like, he was coming in like the Mike Tyson of the UFC, okay? But they have to fight each other in the end, and it's one of the best final act fights of all time, in my opinion. It is super high level quality, and it goes not exactly where you expect it, and that's what makes it good. So I highly recommend it to you, Umar. You need to watch Warrior, but it's a really good example of what they could do. Now, he's not gonna go fight his brother. We don't need that. But you need to have emotional stake on that last fight, and then you keep it to really grounded hand-to-hand combat, and you make it simple, and you don't need, a boat flying out of the ocean landing in a building to make a fight happen. So,
or him murdering a guy. Like, what the heck?
Like, all I wanted
I
was fists. I just wanted fists. I don't need.
Yes.
Why we got a boat?
Like, yeah, exactly. But I actually liked that aspect because it actually showed like some levels of character growth and also like a character divergence from what we'd seen. Like, we were finally getting an understanding of why he's so reserved, but they didn't do anything with it.
That was so out of pocket, man. Like, for me, like, it came out of nowhere, and then it turned into some like Nightcrawler, like, not the Marvel character,
his other film.
It just got really weird, and then he went completely off the rails, and I was like, this is like really odd shift. And then it's like they didn't know, like you were saying, Umar, they didn't really know what to do with it, and it never really went anywhere. And like everything that he did up until that point was never utilized. So I was like, why even have that scene to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
he straight murdered a guy.
Yeah, and it was never addressed again. It's like,
and like kept him in a refrigerator, like some like what Dexter shit, and then I was like, what movie am I watching now?
Because the thing is, you think that it's going to go into a completely different direction, and that the fights are going to be actually not so like fun and a lot darker. And then it's like, nah, we're going to get you on a boat, and also, you're going to take your girlfriend, who's not technically your girlfriend, and also she's going to apparently now be scared of you after she already you killed the guy. So like, I will say that this segment has surprisingly made me really want to watch this movie you just talked about, Darcy, because you amped up the Warrior for me now, and I'm like,
acting is phenomenal, man. Like,
yeah,
it's just
Warrior, by the way, not the Warrior.
Just Warrior.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to talk to my partner and see if we can put that on higher on the list right now.
Because there's a lot of movies called The Warrior, and I don't want to be like, what is this film?
Darce, we need to talk.
It's like, first off, medieval times. I don't understand. You said UFC. It's like, you watched the wrong film, my guy. There's definitely like a Bollywood The Warrior. That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh God, please don't do that to me, man. But I just saying something that Maybot says. Umar doesn't need the big stakes, so one less enemy to find the one piece for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I figured that was more for Darcy than it was for me.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's one peak, by the way, just to clarify.
Okay.
That's what I call it. These points.
All right, moving on to our next topic. So we haven't talked about this in quite a while, but we were getting a new Batman animated series, and the last time we talked about it, we found out this was just around the time Kevin Conroy passed away, that he actually was supposed to be voicing some stuff in it, and I'm not sure if it was supposed to be Batman or if it was supposed to be something else. But this past week, we have actually gotten some basically a synapse of Batman Cape Crusader, and also we got some leaked images from it. So the synapse is. Sorry, I just lost it here. Welcome to Gotham City, where the corrupt outnumber the good, the criminals run rampant, and law-abiding citizens live in a constant state of fear. Forged in the fire of tragedy, wealthy socialite Bruce Wayne becomes something both more and less than human, the Batman. His one-man crusade for justice attracts unexpected allies within the GCPD and City Hall, but his heroic actions spawn deadly, unforeseen ramifications. Now, this is pretty much just like an everyday description of what Batman is, but the images that we were receiving were not what I thought. Mostly because the images were very. They had So Tactix. For those of you who are listening, I will try to describe it. But like the animated characters seem very 1950s mixed in with early WB animated characters, and kind of mesh them together to bring a new but old view of very like normally Batman characters. People like Two-Face, Catwoman, Renee Montoya, Harley Quinn, Clayface, and so on. I am not against these pictures. I'm not against the synopsis, but I will say that the animation at present, again, these are very early on images, didn't really hit a chord with me as I thought it would. Now, nonetheless, this is still going to be produced by Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, and Matt Reeves. And the head writer is Ed Brubaker. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ed Brubaker is a famed comic book writer and has done some great Batman comics. My favorite being The Man Who Laughs, which I think I bought UT.
The Man Who Laughs sounds familiar.
It was basically it's supposed to be canonically the first time the Joker ever shows up and Batman faces him.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so like he is capable. I have faith. At the same time, these pictures kind of, I wouldn't say they took away, but I wouldn't, I wasn't like, ooh. Instead, I was like, oh. So I'm kind of interested in what my bros think. So T, let's go with you. Like as a fellow beloved Batman fan, what were your thoughts on these leaked images?
I'll be honest, I don't love it. I was when this first got announced, I was super excited for it, and I was like, I remember waiting for it. Like they announced this so long ago, and I was like, why haven't we heard any new updates on it? And then I heard that this was going to be potentially set in the 40s, and then I was just kind of like, why though? And so that kind of struck a nerve for me, because for me, I part of what makes Batman so interesting is the tech that he utilizes, right? And I just feel like if he's in the 40s, like what kind of tech is he really gonna have that's gonna like wow us at this point when we have AI and all this other technology that we have in our real world? Yes, Umar.
The
Answer.
Batman animated series, when it first started out, they were using Tommy guns and were like using like 50s garbs
You're
and
talking
cars.
about the Batman animated show that
Yeah,
came out years ago,
in the 90s.
right?
Yeah,
That
but like
we didn't have the tech that we have now. That's my point.
he still had tech that we still don't have now.
What do you mean?
So
Like,
hold on. So just make sure there's clarity here. He's saying that the original show that we all loved would look like it was based in the 50s.
yeah. So I'm just saying that like this is kind of
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I know, but back then we didn't have a big sample size to really
that's
compare it to. You know what I mean? Like
that's also
now,
true.
like so many different shows have come out. Like we have Batman Beyond, and all these other things. And so it's
Young
like,
Justice.
yeah, and then we have the movies on top of that too. Where like, I mean, Christopher Nolan's films alone were heavily rooted in Batman's tech and his gadgets and his vehicles and stuff, right? So I feel like I feel like this is kind of like taking a step backwards in a way. So
Okay.
that kind of threw me off a little bit. And then these images, they don't really stand out to me as being all that captivating, in my opinion. And
Gotcha.
so the only thing that is somewhat interesting is how they described Harley Quinn, where they're basically creating like a reverse personality of Harley Quinn. So like in the original series, like anytime she was actually the moniker of Harley Quinn, she was very comical and almost ditzy. And then when she was Harleen Quinzel, she was more on the serious side, right?
Yeah.
Whereas they're inversing that, and now it's going to be Harley Quinn or Harleen Quinzel is going to be more on the comical ditzy side, and then Harley Quinn is going to be like more serious and dark and almost sinister in a way. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. And I'm not super attached to like Harley Quinn in the sense of like, oh, that's not authentic to like the comics because she wasn't even ever a part of the comics. So
You're not going to be offended.
I'm not gonna be offended at all. I don't mind seeing a different iteration of Harley Quinn. But yeah, overall, I don't know how I feel about this yet. And on top of that, like a lot of the DC animated stuff that has been coming out as of late hasn't really piqued my interest in any facet. So
It's been trash.
yeah. So
Like,
so at this point, I don't care who's attached. I'm just kind of like, you know, the proof has to be in the pudding. I'll wait till I see it. And on top of that, another thing is like after seeing those Batman Beyond images, I'm like, that's the show I want, or that's the movie I want. I don't,
oh my
you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, can you
so
imagine that movie or show? Movie or show? Oof, I don't know which one I want more.
well,
I
okay,
know.
so well now because of the whole X-Men '97 thing, I wouldn't mind them revisiting the Batman Beyond animated show because they left on a cliffhanger, and we never
Yeah.
got to finish that series.
Which is what
So
we wish this was right now, but moving
yeah. So yeah, so that's my opinion.
Darce?
I'm a counter a little bit, but not by a lot. So the things that I am liking about this is that the animation style still feels very reminiscent and slightly upgraded the exact same way X-Men 97 does. The story isn't a continuation directly with the exact same characters 100%. I'm not saying that, but it still feels there's like look at that painted background. Like you still get that like okay the characters drawn, the background feels painted. There's that overly simplistic level of how things are designed, which is also coming from that 40s 50s style where things were like overly simplistic.
Yeah.
There is a slightly darker noir feeling to this, and I will say that like going back does allow for it to be simpler and the story to be more focused because you remove like well why wouldn't they just use this tech for that, like when you don't have things limitations make creativity, so there's
Right.
things in the story that they can do that maybe they wouldn't want to do if it was like 2020, right? However, I will say that is my least favorite cowl ever for Batman. I've never. The only time I've liked the long ears ones is when it was like gothic design and it felt very similar to Spawn. right? Where everything is accentuated and gothic feeling. And I've seen some, some drawn versions of Batman. Some of those are the that one that is like purple, and it's not
Yeah.
really Batman. It's like a
It's oh god, I'm
it's like a knight
blanking
something.
right now. Yeah.
So, it's like something knight or whatever. But I don't mind it when it's
Zurin R.
certain are, yeah. I don't mind it when it's not night. When it's more everything's gothic, but that cowl is just bothering me. But part of me is excited, not like, oh, I'm rushing out, but like part of me is like the tone and the people involved and this, it feels just by the look of it like, yeah, we're going right back to what we had before, but an adult version of it. So instead of saying like, let's take X-Men and go X-Men 97 and we'll take the same stuff and we'll make it more adult, and we'll keep a very similar pacing but a little bit faster, and like there's a lot of rules that it has to match, which is great. X-Men 97 has hit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But but this feels like, hey, let's do what we did before if we wanted to improve it. It's kind of like going to Invincible from the comic to the animated, where there were things in the comic that are like, hey, I did that at a certain time. Now I'm older. I want to do it a little differently. And so there's been changes to Invincible in the animated show that, like Umar, you've mentioned. I was like, yeah, that was different in the comic, and I actually like this now because it's improved. Like this part of this person's storyline is improved. And so I feel like they're kind of going back and saying, hey, we love the first show. We did a great job with the first show, but like we kind of want to do something different. We kind of want to like do the same thing, but like we want to improve where we couldn't do at that time, whether it was technology or just that we're older and we've learned. So something about this makes me feel like we're gonna get a better story, and I'm gonna hate the cowl the whole time. That's about it.
Um, I'm not gonna lie, Darcy. You've kind of swayed me a little bit just now, because I do see what you're saying. Though Nudgem is saying X-Men was extra amazing because of the social commentary. What can Batman say? I think that goes back to what you just said, Darcy, because like what they could do is, yeah, we're doing a similar setting and a similar style as what, like, we're going back to basics like the first animated series, but that was for kids and we had to pull our punches a little bit. We can go darker this time. We can actually have like serious issues, serious crimes that
Yeah.
are we going to talk about? Is the justice system just not there, and do we need, like, is a vigilantism sufficient, or like could it make social commentaries regarding the the failure in the justice system and how Batman feels necessary, or go into more of a psychological aspect of it? Like, is Batman just wasting his time?
It's also interesting, like the Industrial Revolution, and I don't remember the timelines on that, but the Industrial Revolution changed the American society dramatically from being like what it was to very, very prosperous, and the middle class was very, very strong. This show could also be at the cusp of, and using Gotham as an example of the fall of the middle class.
Ooh.
And there could be a lot of social commentary that comes from that, because Gotham very much looks like a industrial revolutionary like metropolis that's about to fall, or already like it normally has fallen, but it could be at the point of which it's on that decline. And that's a big reason, the timing of Batman, right? Not
I
because of
like
that,
that.
because of a lot of other reasons, but like they really could play that, because I think that's what it kind of was in its origin in some way that maybe we didn't understand because we were a child and it came 40 years before us or whatever. So yeah, like there just could be a level there where you really bake it into that and you go back to its origins.
And also, kind of like furthering that, and also something that Najm says, he says, I need a minority Gotham kid yelling at Batman, when are you going to help us? You can play that in, because since Matt Reeves is involved, I like the element that he put in for the Batman, where it was talking about class systems and how one class cannot understand another class because they just are completely blind to it. Like, Catwoman literally called out Batman's privilege, even though she didn't know he was a billionaire, by saying, "You sound like you're from money," by saying that there's always a choice. And it's like, well, this is going to like, what if Batman is actually having to realize that, some of these criminals don't have a choice. They're just doing it to survive. And he's actively having to change the criminals he's going after. And also, does he have to protect the minorities from the police?
Yeah, yeah. This could get. I think there's opportunity there, and
Yeah.
there's enough people to do something like that.
Yeah.
And that and the fact that it just looks like an upgraded and yet older version of what we saw before gives me hope, because if this looked like just completely new animation style, and I don't think I would have this like feeling that I have about it based off the way it's drawn, if it just looked like more of new stuff that we're not familiar with.
Right. All right. Well, hopefully, T, these ideas that we're coming out with has made you a little bit more hopeful.
It hasn't.
Okay. Okay.
I wouldn't have gone that way. I said just hopefully it ends up being good so you like it.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our big ticket item of today, which is X-Men 97. Now, we have repeatedly talked on this series and how much we love it. So we missed last week, and this week was the season finale. So we are going to be reviewing episodes 9 and 10, which is let's just say that I'm excited for this conversation. The episodes 9 and 10 are Tolerance is Extinction Part 2 and 3. Now, I'm not going to say much more because I've been dying to hear my bros' thoughts on this, because I've been like nonstop talking about this in Colombia. No one else is watching it here, so like I just might as well just talk to the wall at this point, because like my partner is like tired of me talking about this. So like I need to talk to my bros because I'm gonna die.
Lead, go right ahead. You go first. You excited? Tell us what you loved about this.
I fucking love this show. Okay, like I am dying. Like, why hire Bo back? Hire Bo back. Unless he killed somebody or slapped somebody, and maybe he can apologize, and we could all like, I don't know, do something to like make those people feel better. But like, the man is on fire, and you fired him. Why? Anyway, that's out. I got that out. It's off my chest. Here we go. So, X-Men 97, episode 9. It did the thing. It showed me what I've been waiting for since I was a kid. Now, it may be weird to say, but when I was like watching this as in the animated series, and I was like, when are they going to show Magneto ripping out Wolverine's adamantium? And like, most people were like, I don't know what you're talking about. But now people are like, why did you want that as a child? I was like, because it was dope. So like, I got that, bros. I got it. I lived for that moment, and it happened. I never thought it would happen, and it did. And okay, I need to breathe. I'm actually getting a little lightheaded right now.
Breathe, Umar, breathe.
I'm also like, I probably have altitude sickness because it's like Bogota is higher than Toronto. But anyway, so the other thing I wanted to say was justice for Cyclops, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Storm. There's a lot of justice happening for a lot of characters that were like underselled. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me Wolverine. I loved what Hugh Jackman did. But at the same time, there are a lot of other characters in X-Men, and I was like, we need them to be front and center, or at least have something good done. And this show was justice for all of them. Cyclops, especially in the final episode, was doing some shit that I'm like, see, this is why he leads the X-Men. He leads it because of this. And Nightcrawler, honestly, I went back and I listened to a couple of things that you said, Darcy. I'm not going to try to change anything you said because you said it perfectly. But like, perfect iteration of Nightcrawler. Rogue. This is a question to you guys for you to answer when you have time. When I allow you to speak, when I don't, like when I'm passed out on the ground here. But like
30 seconds left in the podcast.
I know. Yeah. Aside from telling me what you thought of the last 2 episodes and like the season as a whole, who would you say, I just spit all over my screen because I'm that happy. Who would you say is your MVP of the season? like out of all the characters, who do you think is your MVP? Because I am between Magneto, Cyclops, or Rogue. Frankly, I think Cyclops is a little bit. You know what? I'm gonna throw out Cyclops. I'm sorry, bro, but not right now.
It's still
Rogue
not
and
that good.
Magneto. Rogue and Magneto. I can't choose between the two of them right now, and like I need to do like a flow chart or like some sort of like Excel document to like help me with this. But like, okay, I'm gonna stop now because I'm getting lightheaded again. T, how about you take it away? What do you think?
Man, how do I follow that?
Oh my goodness.
Pull it back, baby. Pull it back.
Well,
Every
okay.
time I asked out somebody, I just started hyperventilating and passed out.
Okay, so first to answer your question as who is the MVP, it's so hard to answer that because, like I said when we first started talking about this show, is that Wolverine took a back seat so that everyone else could grab the wheel and showcase their talent. And everybody got their time to shine. We already know that Wolverine is dope. And we already knew that dope shit was coming from him, which was great. And we got that. Unfortunately, my man had to, bow out for the count at the end. But, it made for a dope moment. Rogue like completely was like folded a Bastion. That like when she went off on him, I was like, yo, I've never seen Rogue go that hard in the paint before.
She had a Miss Marvel moment, like when
Yeah,
she came
bro.
into that scene.
She stole her powers.
And then in just that final episode, the finale, Nightcrawler, my man, he has been wrecking shop since he first showed up. But the way that they utilized his powers in this, and I for a moment I got scared because I was like, are they gonna kill this guy off?
Terrified.
I was
so
so scared. I'm like, don't
Yeah.
do it. Because
It looked like it was coming.
Wings. He got metal wings. I'm like, I'm just waiting for one to stab him. I'm like, no.
It looked like it was coming, and like with the amount of deaths that we've gotten in this show already, it's anybody's game at this point. So nobody is safe. So I was a little scared, but I was glad that he made it out unscathed. So it's hard because he also had a dope moment. And then surprisingly, it was very brief, was unexpected, but Jubilee, she landed a heavy hit on Bastion. And
that was nice.
I was like, yo. And he actually clowned her too. He's like, what are you gonna do? Like hit me with like the 4th of July? And she was like, yeah, yes.
I love how his face was like melted off and her was like a split in the glass. And like, so somebody has been training a little bit harder.
100%, 100%. And then
and Jean, justice for Jean, she didn't faint at all.
Man, but we knew. I mean, Jean is dope. I mean, when she got into the Phoenix and then did her thing, that was crazy. I actually thought that was how they were gonna initially defeat Bastion, and it was just going to be focusing on Magneto. And I was like, oh, that's kind of lame. And then he fully just ripped Cable's arm off and then bitch slapped him with it.
Literally.
That's kind of disrespectful. I'm not gonna lie.
You know what? On that though, I love when Cyclops is like, he hurt him. I was like, that's a dad right there. That was a dad moment right there. He's like, oh, I'm coming for that ass.
And speaking of that, to answer Najum's question of which moment did you cry at, guy, I think we all cried. I know I for sure did. The hologram of him and Jean Grey saying goodbye to Cable.
Oh,
and then as if that wasn't bad enough to like put the icing on the cake, when he comes back into his body and then he does his final blast, you could see like a little bit of a tear before he emits the laser. I was like,
yeah.
First of all, I got to replay that back again because was that a tear in his eye? It was. Now there's a tear in my eye. Shit, it hit hard for me. So that was great. We got some great cameos in this. The
cameos.
And it looks like Peter Parker has found MJ. So now they have to do Spider-Man
100%
because we had that gap has to be filled. Like, how did he find it? Right?
There's so much they're setting up with this. It's like, the whole MCU can just go animated at this point.
Well, 100%. So so many great moments. I had up until this point, I didn't know who Bastion was. Umar, you told me about him, and I was just kind of like, okay, he's
We gonna remember
whatever.
his name though. We
Yeah,
gonna remember
yeah.
his name.
Oh yeah, bro. Like when he morphed and like oh man, I want to see this guy like fuck a Kang. I want to see this guy show up in the
Right?
MCU. Like I'm done with Kang. I want to see this guy show up. Like he has completely sold me on this.
The voice actor nailed it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Man, honestly, this is a near flawless show.
So I'm gonna something that like Nudgem told me. Like he was basically he was watching the season finale, and he his partner his wife said to him is like, wait, so they're gonna try to save humanity after they just try to nuke them, and like Nudgem was like, yeah, because they're the X-Men, and I'm like, yes,
yeah.
this season finale, for the first time, actually gave us a full-fledged like, yeah, this is what the X-Men are. When everyone literally is like, we're gonna kill you, we don't give a fuck. They're like, yeah, we gonna save you no matter what.
And I think that emphasizes the point that Darcy made in regards to the Roadhouse and the third act syndrome, where it's like you have this epic fight with no emotional context behind it, whereas this was the complete opposite, where it's like you have an epic fight, and then Cyclops, being the dope leader that he is, he was like, no, we're no longer going to fight the future. We're going to try and embrace it. And then he has that whole speech. And then, of course, Bastion is just like, no, like, fuck you guys. But it was such
you feel for Bastion a little.
Yeah, it's a great moment. Yeah. You kind of you empathize with him a lot. And that's what made him such a compelling villain. And then on top of that, we also have to deal with like the aftermath of like Magneto and like that whole thing where like Xavier goes into his mind, and then they're having their whole dialogue and whatnot. That was a great moment. I really loved seeing that. It's a great show. The only bad thing, and it's not really a bad thing, it's just me being like greedy. I wanted more episodes, man. I'm not ready for this to be over and to have to wait like 2 years for the season 2 to arrive. So that's really the only negative thing I could say about this show, man. And the Jubilee episode, I wasn't feeling that. Aside from that,
I was
because
skipping
like for me, I would say like the show, like my critique is the show felt rushed. Like they had to like cram in a lot in each episode. Give us more episodes, you don't have a problem. Darcy, back to you, man. Back to you.
Okay. But by the way, this cut for him looking young, man, he been handsome his whole life. I will say, going back to those grapes, my feeling is the Jubilee episode, that was the weakest. But I definitely felt like the pacing was rushed in the early part. And if they had given us more time to feel and deal with certain things, because like when we got to like the whole Jean Grey and her clone, it's like, that could have been like a 2-episode arc minimum, right? Like maybe even a 3-episode arc with like other things happening at the same time. And so like, that definitely would, because when we got to these like last 3-4 episodes, like that was seriously, and the pacing and like whatnot, I felt like we're really building on something and really like letting it happen. Whereas other things were like, all these things happen in like a span of a couple episodes, and you're like, okay. But in terms of MVPs in this, I don't know where to put that. I mean,
it's hard, man.
Magneto, his whole story in this was so good. Like I think that honestly, one of the greatest things about this season, the X-Men got put forward, but Magneto got really a great story. And like this, like let me put this, Magneto has been fantastic in live action by the people who've betrayed him. I would say that Michael Fassbender's portrayal, not saying that he's better than the other actors. I think that the story he was given was one of the better stories, and that we really understood him. By the time everything he did, you're like, nah, I get it. I mean, the farther we got out, the worse it was, and that it was like, okay, we just gonna see Magneto, he just gonna be here, but like that's it. Like he just paid to be here. Like, but this one was like, I love how this show knew that we knew things. so it didn't have to show
Yeah.
us. It didn't show us the camp. It referenced it, and at best, it played audio of it in the background. Should be like, this is what he's thinking about right now. Okay, got it. We know. We know. And Nightcrawler, however, not the MVP in the moment, is my MVP though, because
I can't fault you on that.
there was a great meme that was like, he's like, Kurt, what's his last name? Is it Wagner?
Yeah.
Kurt Wagner is like a Catholic priest, but then when he like is Nightcrawler, he's like I will not judge you, but I can send you to the one that will. Kind of. I'm like I won't cast judgment, but this man's about to do it. So you're on your way. Yeah, he. I would say that my favorite. So like. My least favorite characters at this point, actually, my least favorite character in X-Men in general is Jean Grey. I've never been a huge fan, and she's been heavily overplayed, and I'm just so tired of Jean Grey. And so I was glad that yep, they did the thing with her, and I was like, don't tell me she's just gonna fix everything, because she's always the damn one who fixes everything, and it's like the same problem as like everything is about Wolverine. And I was glad that it was quick. And then when we got to see her and Cyclops at the table with their son, I was like, that's amazing. And using the power so he could see the eyes, that was amazing. I also thought it was just amazing. I'm like, they're up here doing something, but they're in an astral plane in their brains, sitting down at a diner having a conversation. What? How does that work in your mind that you're doing those two things simultaneously, right? I've just loved this season, and or show, because it's kind of feels like a season as well. But I just want to see more. Rogue was fantastic. I'm just glad that we got this, and I want to see more. And if it requires I don't know, signing up to an OnlyFans account, I might have to consider. For context for people, because that's just out of nowhere for some people, the guy who wrote this whole season and has written the second season, and apparently it was already started on the third, who got fired from Disney. Some people suspect he got fired because he had an OnlyFans account. So just for full context there, otherwise it's just like, why would you just do that to watch the show? It makes no sense.
I think that context was necessary. All right, I do want to ask, what did you guys feel of how the exact ending went? Like, you guys also saw the post-credit scene, I'm assuming. Yeah. So how did you feel about the ending in terms of the X-Men being split up in time, and also clearly both ends having to deal with this man on screen, aka Insaba Noor, aka Apocalypse,
aka give me the next season. I'm ready. I mean, I'm not the hugest fan in general related to like time skip stuff.
Yeah.
But given what I've seen so far, I'm just there. I'm like, I have no need to apply my historical dislike for that kind of concept, given the content of what I've been receiving so far. So I'm excited about it. Plus, like many other things related to the X-Men live actions, it's about damn time we got to fix this character, because since we had the Power Rangers version, it'd be nice to see something better.
T?
Yeah, I'm with Darcy. I'm as intrigued about time skips as I am about space. So that should say a lot. But obviously this show has delivered on all avenues, and so I'm super excited for whatever they give us for season 2. And yeah, I want to see what they do with the whole Apocalypse storyline, and then that post-credit scene with the resurrection of Gambit and how that's all going to play out potentially. So I'm here for it all, man.
I will say that I was like, and this is coming from a comic book fan, I was mildly disappointed that we went in this direction, because for me, if they're focusing on Apocalypse, I would have wanted them to do Age of Apocalypse, which is like an alternate timeline, but they've already done something similar to that in the animated series back in the 90s. So I feel like repetition is a little too much. I would have liked to see Onslaught. I think Onslaught's not happening in season 2 because like what created Onslaught, which is basically the darkness of Magneto infecting the mind of Charles Xavier to basically create a dualed creature that is living separately from Xavier and then has all of Xavier's powers and Magneto's powers and basically is a malevolent force. That apparently is going to be further down the line.
I mean, they've laid the groundwork.
So in the comics, when Magneto rips out the adamantium from Wolverine, that is what triggers Xavier to be like, okay, he's gone too far. I'm mind wiping him, and in doing so, causes it to happen. So like this is the same moment, but it also happened in the animated series. To be fair, I liked this a little bit better because I liked showing that Xavier actually got through to Magneto, because I'm tired of him being the villain. I like him being the anti-hero. I like him being the one that is there and then also not there. That's on their side, but also not on their side. Like in this entire season, like you guys just talked about it, he wasn't the villain. He was a part of the team, and he also went off and got pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
I like that element of Magneto. How did you guys think of like the conversation between Magneto and Xavier in the final part? Like specifically, T, I want to ask you because you're really into like spirituality and a lot of things of having to deal with like the things that drive us forward and like those elements. Like, how did you find that the conversation and also the waves of water and all that?
I definitely liked the water element, especially they did a very interesting thing with the water and how they utilized it, where or just they played around with the reflections a lot. So if you notice that whenever the villains were being reflected, they were only there for a split second and then they were gone. Whereas like anytime the good guys were being reflected, they would hold their reflection. Their reflection would still remain in the image. And so there was a moment where we actually see Magneto's reflection, and it actually doesn't disappear at all. So it kind of goes to your point about him not being the villain. He's actually an anti-hero who's conflicted, more so leaning towards his own ideologies, because he believes in his ideals and his motives, because it's for the betterment of his own kind. And the conversation and the conviction that Charles has in trying to help Magneto see not so much the error of his ways, but just kind of see things from a different perspective, or see things from his perspective, and trying to he still has faith in Magneto and his potential to change. But it begs the question, in terms of this whole Onslaught thing, if the extraction of the adamantium from Wolverine wasn't enough to trigger Onslaught, then what the heck will?
I think it will. It's going to take longer. I think like because they did share a mind and their mind could shatter together. Maybe Xavier.
But that wasn't the main catalyst, because you said in the comics that like it happened like almost instantly after that moment.
So like when he ripped out the adamantium, everyone was in shock. Like everyone was trying to like basically tend to Wolverine. Like Jean was literally holding his body together with her telekinesis. And Xavier was like, he got so pissed, and he was like, Wolverine is the last person you'll ever hurt. I will no longer let you harm other people, and just like shoots them with telepathic power and completely mind wipes him.
But that didn't happen in this.
No. But what happened in this is they shared a mind, and both of their minds could have died together.
But it didn't, and now they're back to their own individual minds.
But like as you were saying, the darkness was still there, and like Xavier was trying to get him to see it from a different perspective. But the reverse could have also happened without them realizing.
Well, my question is, there still has to be a trigger, right?
I
So
think the triggers happened. It was a growing seed that then like it was like a seed, and then it just grew into onslaught over years.
so what you think it's just gonna like one day they're just gonna wake up and become onslaught, or is there actually gonna be some sort of catalyst event that actually triggers it and put like it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like what's going to be that event that actually pushes them over the edge? Because it didn't happen with the Wolverine thing, and I think they probably did that strategically because you were probably we were probably well for those who are familiar with the comics, we're probably expecting that to happen, and everyone was speculating, oh, Onslaught is coming, he's going to be the next big bad, but they did that as a deflection because obviously they're setting up Apocalypse
Apocalypse.
now, right?
Yeah, it could be onslaught. Could be third season or fourth season.
Yeah. So then my question still remains: what is the catalyst?
So I love Nutjum's comment. Tactics is revealing the stupidity of how Onslaught came about in the comic. Yeah. Darcy, how about you, man? Like, what did you think of the Magneto Xavier interactions?
I mean, I just think it was amazing writing. It was brilliant. I don't have a lot more to say on what Tactics has already said.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I enjoyed it because it just helped flesh out Magneto more, and it was a good representation of Professor X. And it was good utilization, and but like many characters who needed more of a backseat, Professor X took a backseat, and so he was used well. And like Jean Grey was used well, right? And Wolverine was used well when they were needed, but they weren't the forefront that they normally are. Because usually it's like Professor X and his righteousness is like overly portrayed, and Magneto is, like you said, just a villain. And this time it's like, way more interesting, way more layered, and way more something you can relate to. So I love that.
Darcy, this was a while ago. We talked about like Professor Xavier as a character, and especially in terms of his privilege, and also whether he is actually as empathetic and as caring as he's depicted to be. Would you say that this, like again, like you said, he was used sparingly in this season? Would you say that by the season finale he was seen more as that way, or does he still kind of appear as the privileged individual?
I still feel like he's a bit privileged, and I feel like Bo was doing a good job of subtly, and maybe not to everyone's understanding, but like I felt like he was subtly kind of showing that, because I feel like, how do I put this? Professor X has an altruistic idea that is kind of ignorant of certain people's nuanced experiences, but his goal is not wrong or bad, but it's like without consideration at times of other people's like situations. And so it's like if we just keep doing the right thing, everything will work out. And it's like, yeah, but you're gonna drag a lot of things through the mud in the direction you're going, and you're not acknowledging that. And and not everybody wants to go through that experience the way you want to. um and I think I here's what I think is like, I think Professor X's sorry, excuse me, goal in what he wanted, like let's say if Professor X were to like sit back, hindsight 2020, and look at what happened this season, he'd be like, yes, you see at the end, uh everything works out right. And it's like, you're kind of oversimplifying and checking off that good things happened, but the way you view it is actually not how it happened,
Yeah.
because the good thing that happened was the X-Men decided to do the right thing no matter what. But when they were protecting that ash of him, the planet, I was also thinking, I'm like, yes, they're doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but they're not doing it the way Professor X is thinking of it, where it's just like, save humans, they will finally learn to love us. Like, no, they're saving their damn home. If nothing else, they're saving. They could be literally just saving mutants, because they have to save everybody to save anybody. So there's just no alternative. And I feel like at the end of this, you could still come out if they didn't like immediately have time skips and have new problems to worry
Yeah.
about, if they just literally landed and it was like a conversation that needed to be had with them and like, why did you shoot at us? I think that Cyclops immediately would not be on Professor X's side. I think he would be very much like, no, like I was just trying to save the people I love and the people that I care about. And if it happens to save everybody else, that's fine, right? It's fine. But like it's not I don't agree with them, and I'm not just like gonna protect them and not care about what they're doing to us. And I think Professor X is just kind of like caught a little bit in the magical mindset where it's like, you just got shot with a rocket, and it's like, I don't think he would care. I think he just like doesn't see it that way. And everyone else is like, the fact that you don't see it that way is what's pissing us off, which is like how people of privilege talk to other people. And they're like, you're pissing us off because you're just ignoring the thing that we're talking about to talk about what's on the other side of it, but ignoring everything in the middle. So I to be honest, I kind of didn't like Professor X this season. and I was glad he had a back seat, and his purpose is important, but I think he's failing, and that's the story that I want to see, because that altruistic and ignoring of reality is not what's going to work.
Darcy, you have no idea how accurate you are to the comics, especially and also specifically when referring to Cyclops. Like, bro, like, not to even said it, like red suits the Cyclops. You got that. T, anything you want to add to what Darcy was just saying?
No, I 100% agree. And I think that Professor Xavier should have just stayed his ass in space. he should have just stayed in space, man. Because as soon as he came down, I mean, shit already hit the fan, but he didn't make shit better. He actually made shit a lot worse.
Am I late, guys?
You've been late, guy. Go back up. Go back up, man. Like, what are you doing?
You should. I wish you guys would have seen like the comments online. They're like, if this guy tries to talk to Xavier, tries to talk to Magneto or Rogue after Genosha while he was out in space, we gonna have problems.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like something about him is bothering me now.
All right, moving on to our final topic, which is going to be a spoiler-free review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because our bro Darcy hasn't had a chance to watch it yet. So Tactix and I have, and we're just going to give our quick like our rating of the movie and our general thoughts without spoiling too much. So T, I'm going to volley it to you first, bro. What do you think of the new trilogy, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Overall, I liked it, especially the first two acts. It kind of falls apart with the introduction of the quote unquote antagonist, who, if you can really call him that, because he felt like
Yeah.
I felt like and this is not really a spoiler, Darcy, but like the his commander, like the main gorilla, I felt like he was more of a big bad than
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, so aside from that, like I'll give it I gave it a low 7 out of 10, just because I felt like, there was a lot there that I liked, in the sense that this main character, especially, he's definitely not like a Caesar carbon copy, which I actually enjoyed. I do miss Caesar, but I feel like Caesar's story is complete. We don't really need to do a retelling of his story and whatnot. And I like the fact that they kind of fast forward to like years into the future, and now it's kind of like, everything has kind of been lost in translation, and now it creates a different dilemma amongst like humans and apes, which was really interesting. And I felt like they've only scratched the surface of where that storyline can potentially go.
Yeah.
There are a few deaths in here that don't really hit as hard as you want, just because of the fact that like there's not enough time to flesh out these characters for us to really care. So the emotional weight of everyone's death doesn't hit as hard as you really want it to. You know what I mean? Like in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, when we see a death on screen, it's because we've had a lot of time to connect with these characters, and it lands so much stronger and more impactful. Same with War of the Planet of the Apes. With this, you know, they're kind of in a between a rock and a hard place because they have to set up a new storyline. And they have to do it within a short amount of time, and so that's kind of I felt like was a tall order for them, and they didn't really execute it to the best of their ability. But all in all, I still enjoyed it for what it was. I felt it could have been better. I felt like a lot of things could be more fleshed out, but they do build on a lot of interesting things to come. And if you're somewhat familiar with like the older movies, not the Caesar trilogy, but like the older Planet of the Apes movies, then you kind of have a general idea of where this new trilogy is going. And so that's pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's set to be like a 9, or I think they're gonna do. It'll be like a total of 3 trilogies, so like 9 films in total. So
we're 4 out of 9 right now.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of where I would rate it, out of the 4 that we have right now, I'm debating on whether or not I'm gonna put this either last or like 3rd.
Okay.
And it's not a shot at like it being a bad film. And I know a lot of people give unnecessary hate to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but I actually really enjoyed that one. It's obviously not the strongest in the trilogy.
Yeah.
But I felt like there's more of a cohesive storyline in there that everything is like fleshed out a lot better in that film than in this. So I almost feel like I'd put that a little bit higher than this one, but this one is still good. It's still a solid entry to the new trilogy. And then, of course, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is number 1 for me, and then War is number 2. So, yeah, 7 out of 10 for me for this one.
Okay, so T, I'm not going to actually disagree with you on any front, and I will say that I would give this a 7.8 out of 10. I feel I'm being generous because I really enjoyed the first 2/3 of the film, because like I felt the more they tried to include humans into the story was the problem, and also the third act minus the antagonist had a lot of room that could have made him very, very prominent as a villain, like a very powerful villain, like Koba level in terms of like nuance and growth. They didn't go that way, which hurt. Secondly, they put way too much human stuff, which felt like it was like set up for a franchise. That's fine. They need to do it, fair enough. But like I felt they overstuffed this film to make set up, which is never something you want to do with a narrative. I'll just keep saying it. The first 2/3 was just all show and not tell. They gave exposition, but like it was limited. They had characters that were great that ultimately didn't go as like in a good direction that I was hoping for, or where the potential was. So that was a letdown for me. I'm just repeating stuff that you're saying, T. For me, this is third. This is third. Like I will say that it's definitively third for me. Because I don't mean to give hate to Rise, because Rise, everything to do with Andy Serkis in Rise was perfection. My problem was, again, the more human element. Like a lot of those things were kind of not as developed because, like, and fair enough, their focus was on Caesar. I'm okay with that. Like I got all the elements I had. Like when Caesar yelled no for the first time, I was like, holy shit, because they built it up properly. But the rest of the human stuff and James Franco was kind of like, meh. This kind of did the same thing. Like I don't want to say the same mistake. It's just when you're humanizing the apes to such a degree, bringing in humans, it's kind of like you're being a bit redundant now. And also, like the series is really negative towards humans, like rightly so. Like it's not like they're characterizing humans badly. I just felt that. So I liked this movie. I in no way is it a bad film. It could have been better. There was a lot, like it could have reached the levels of Dawn and War. But they it's still like an enjoyable film. Darcy, I would be very interested to see what you think. And also like if you enjoyed it more than we did or less so. So like it is still something to watch in theaters. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
It's good to know. Decent-ish pitches all around. I will say, don't hold your breath. I ain't got a lot of time for theaters, so it's gonna be a hard sell. I mean, I just saw Monkey Man. Okay, I just saw Monkey Man. Like, when did that come out? Okay, so. By the way, Monkey Man is a 10 out of 10. It's a solid film. It's one of the best introductions for a director slash did everything himself films I've seen since Get Out, and I think it's a better introduction than Get Out, which is why Jordan Peele just got behind that thing. So yeah, that's my pitch for the people who are like me and are waiting to see the last showing of Monkey Man in theaters.
Any other additional reviews you want to give on Monkey Man, Darce? Because I would love to hear it.
One, don't bring children. Made that.
Oh my
mistake.
God! Oh, Jesus! Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we had niece and nephew with us. Did not realize it was gonna. So here's what Cineplex said: 14A for brutal violence. That was fine. That even though it was bad, we were fine with that. These kids watch John Wick. We just didn't know there was gonna be a brothel. At one point, I was like, "Your eyes!" Like, I reached over 2 seats, and then I was like, "I'm sorry." Yeah, there was definitely a knock it back scene that was not right for the eyes, but I think that movie is well, going from a person who's not part of a culture, part of that culture, did such an amazing job of layering so many different things. I felt like I was watching. I felt the Bollywood, but I felt the Chinese martial arts. Like, I felt the raid in that film all day long.
100%.
And then I felt the enough layering of grittiness that like a John Wick or the Punisher would have in a Western film, but it was like, how do you do a shot that has the color palette, the shot angle, and the fantasticalness of a Bollywood like cinematography, and then just make that thing dirty like it's an American film? Like, it was like, I was just like, oh, it was so good. And then there was so much related to the monkey, the story with his mother, like the niece and nephew came out and they were like so happy with that final fight and how that went down, because they were just like, oh, I thought it was gonna go this way, but then it went that way. And that's another example of doing a great third act and the vindication of what would happen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to react like that. Sorry.
And the fighting was fantastic. I thought it was beautiful with the transgender community representation and how that was intertwined, because that was like, it wasn't a let's just throw an agenda at this film. It was, here is a lore-based thing, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know this, and I'm learning something deeply about the lore. And it was also, or not lore, but actual history.
Yes.
And then also the I forgot what I was gonna say, because me saying lore threw me off because that was not the right word. But just like the I don't know, I forget what it was, but the fighting in this was amazing. Oh yeah, I think that's where I was gonna go with it, is that like his fighting was hella believable. Like, there was nothing about it that felt like it had the John Wick brutalness, but it had the extra layer that he was harder to survive through it. And it even had out of all things, it even had the Rocky moment. It had the whole like prepare for the big fight. Like, I was like, how did you throw that in there too? like because like that's the Western thing that you just threw in there, but it made total sense because I'm like, you can't just go back out and fight at this point, man. You're not John Wick, okay? Like you just can't survive, and it's like you need to stop, and then he did. Oh man, and then like also the fight when he like came back and he was like not holding back. You're just like, that fight was over. They were like, the kids are like, what? Damn! And they brought the other guy, and I'm like, so he went from one kick to a double kick, and that's how he won both the fights. That was it. But no, it was fantastic. I'm so glad that it was as good as it was. You know, I just think it was an amazing amalgamation of multiple things, but also an amazing way to bring layers of culture and history to a larger audience, while at the same time not making them feel like they have to watch something. Like, I like Bollywood, but not everyone's going to enjoy Bollywood in a Western world. And so, you know, it was just a way to like bring a lot of that forward, and I really appreciated it. And you know, I can't wait to see what this man wants to do next of his own creation.
Yeah. Thanks, Darcy. We finally get to hear from you on this topic. I was like, honestly, I could not wait to hear what you thought, because like, yeah, like when I watched it, I'm like, oh, I wish I saw this with my bros. No offense to the people I went to go see it with.
I know. But yeah, no, this is like, I think this was a better introduction than Jordan Peele's. And Jordan Peele's is a legendary film. Like, I'm not saying they're not films that compare.
I hear you.
But it's just like, you just came out, you wrote and directed this film as your first entry, and it blows everybody's mind. This was higher executed. The only difference is this just wasn't as popular. But I mean, Jordan Peele got behind it, so that tells you everything.
Yeah. Also, the film made 3 times its budget.
Yeah, and that's really what matters. It doesn't matter if everyone in the world talks about it, because everyone in the world can talk about it and it doesn't make money. But if it makes money, it makes opportunity to do more.
Exactly. All right. Well, T, I'm going to volley it to you, bro, for our final remarks.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys once again for tuning in or listening wherever you are. This has been another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I'm your boy Tactix.
Yo, just Darcy here.
And this is Big Geek Umar. I'll be back in Toronto for our next podcast. And please like, favorite, and subscribe, and also leave comments. We really appreciate them, and they help with our algorithm. So until then, live long and prosper, y'all.
Is that a skull in the background?
It's not Mandalorian anymore.